But first, it's been an extraordinary day, full of anger.
They have shown a monolithic partisan approach to this issue, which has demeaned them, and I'm afraid done no credit to the House either.
Not to mention insults.
A lazy, cowardly, bullying, spiteful, vindictive Prime Minister.
And even applause. And all because of an attempt to change the parliamentary rulebook. You heard there the Conservative Sir Gerald Howarth and the Labour MP Jamie Reid. MPs are now leaving Westminster. From Monday, those who want to return will become election candidates. The Commons won't sit again until after the general election in May. The first task facing MPs will be the re-election of the Speaker, John Bercow. Last night, the Conservative leader of the Commons, William Hague, and his Lib Dem deputy, Tom Brake, tabled a motion proposing a change to the rules so that MPs who objected to the re-election of the Speaker could trigger a secret ballot. Many MPs saw this as a move to oust John Bercow from the post. Labour protested it hadn't been consulted. And today, the Labour MP, Sir Gerald Kaufman, who'll be the father of the House in May if he's re-elected, asked an urgent question about the 11th hour change to the parliamentary timetable. He didn't mince his words and told William Hague that after a distinguished career, he'd end up being remembered for what he called a grubby decision.
Grubby, squalid, nauseous. We can go through the catalogue of adjectives to describe what the Leader of the House has descended to being.
At this stage, William Hague didn't look too unsettled by the anger on the Labour benches. He even managed a grin as he replied to Sir Gerald Kaufman.
I'm grateful, as always, to the right honourable gentleman for those remarks, and I don't mind any amount of personal abuse. He can't compete with the abuse I've received in past years in this House, and that will be water off the back of this particular duck.
He said there was nothing unusual about a government tabling motions at the last minute in the closing days of a parliament, and suggested the absence of any parliamentary ping-pong over legislation had freed up some debating time. And Mr Hague said MPs from all sides of the House wanted to see the rules changed.
We conduct the great majority of elections in this House and all elections out in the country by secret ballot I want to explain this point, for reasons well understood and instantly appreciated. It has been a general principle of our democracy since the 19th century. Whenever voters elect someone in a position of power and authority over them, the principle is that they should be able to do so without fear or favour.
But a Conservative, Peter Bone, declared it was a bad day for Parliament. He said he wouldn't have put it in the way Sir Gerald Kaufman had.
But the gist of what he says is correct. This House should not be being asked, without proper notice, to do such an important thing. I do think the Leader of the House will live to regret this.
Another Conservative, Greg Barker, shouted, "Oh, rubbish," and got a dressing down from the Speaker.
Mr Barker, calm yourself. Your honourable friend is on his feet and he's entitled to be heard with courtesy. It is better... Order! It is better to remain silent and look a fool than speak and remove any lingering doubt.
That brought shouts of rude and disgraceful from some MPs. The emotional temperature was rising. Labour's shadow leader of the House, Angela Eagle, accused the government of behaving in a grubby and underhand way.
Isn't the truth, Mr Speaker, that this has nothing to do with the Procedure Committee's report, and it's everything to do with the character of the Prime Minister? It is a petty and spiteful act because he hates his government being properly scrutinised thanks to this reforming Speaker.
William Hague insisted MPs would have a free vote and argued that a secret ballot would be an improvement to Parliament's procedures. A Conservative, Jacob Rees-Mogg, warned Mr Hague his reputation would suffer.
Does he therefore appreciate the deep sadness that many of us feel that his career should end with his name being put to a bit of parliamentary jiggery pokery that has come about representing grudges that some people have against Mr Speaker?
A Liberal Democrat, David Heath, who's a former Deputy Leader of the Commons, had a suggestion.
There is, of course, another way, which is that the Leader of the House could withdraw. to say, Mr. Speaker, although I would always support a secret ballot, I very much dislike the way that this matter has been brought before the House.
2 years ago, the Commons Procedure Committee asked the government to arrange a debate on this issue. Its chairman, the Conservative Charles Walker, said he hadn't been told about William Hague's plans.
This week, I went to the Leader of the House's leaving drinks. I spent 20 minutes saying goodbye to his special advisor yesterday. I went into his private office and was passed by the Deputy Leader of the House yesterday, all of whom would have been aware of what they were proposing to do. I also had a number of friendly chats with our Chief Whip yesterday. And yet I find out at 6:30 last night that this House, the Leader of this House, is bringing forward my report. Mr. Speaker, I have been played as a fool. And when I go home tonight, I will look in the mirror and see an honourable fool looking back at me. And I would much rather be an honourable fool, Mr. Speaker, in this and any other matter, than a clever man.
When a clearly emotional Mr. Walker sat down, some Labour MPs stood up and began to applaud. Some Conservatives looked close to tears. This was probably the most damaging speech for Mr. Hague. But he did have supporters. The Conservative, Greg Barker, questioned the Speaker's decision to chair this debate. And another Tory, Jessie Norman, complained about who'd been allowed to take part.
May I express my sadness and regret that you have not seen fit to call any other speeches in support of the motion?
After the votes were counted, but before the result was announced, it was clear that the government proposal had been rejected on a free vote. The Speaker looked close to tears as once again Labour MPs burst into applause. 23 Conservatives and 10 Liberal Democrats were among those who voted against the motion, which was defeated by 26 votes. You're listening